Coach Dan Mullen is joining us tonight, talking about the CFP rankings that are out, championship Saturday that is coming up. Happy to have him join us on Outkick. Coach, let's get into it with the rankings that came out this past Tuesday. And we look at the top three. I think we can all agree on the top three. For USC, right, they slide right in after the win this past weekend. They're sitting in a prime spot going into the championship Saturday against Utah. Ohio State 5. So let's break down the first 5 to me. Do you think that they got it right numerically, just putting Georgia at 1, Michigan 2, or does it really matter right now?
Well, I think it gets tricky, and I think they've left themselves some opportunity. I think you could have easily gone Michigan at 1 just because of the quality of win. If you look at the great win, right now, Georgia's great win over Tennessee. They were a great team. They won at home, won pretty convincingly, and that's their only top 10 win. Now, if you look at the big picture thing, I guess Michigan you can throw out. They won at Ohio State against a great team, equal team, but they also won against Penn State, who the committee seems to value extremely high. So I think you could easily make the argument to have put Michigan at number 1, and I think they could still flip it after this weekend with 1 and 2. I think that's a pretty easy sell right there. TCU at 3, I think is very easy. I think TCU's in no matter what. Even if they lose, I think they'll still make the playoff at this point. And that gets you then down to, 4 and 5, which, in thinking about it in reality, you could have easily gone with Ohio State at 4 because you're giving them credit for the Penn State win, and you're giving them credit for if you're going to go that way, you put them in the categories. Okay, let's compare USC then Ohio State 4 and 5, the teams you're next to. That you give them, they had they both had a Notre Dame win. USC has a loss to a Utah team who's just outside of the top 10, where Ohio State's loss is to a number 2 team. The Ohio State, again, I think Penn State's ranked way too high, but if the committee's going to put them there and you go through the reality of it, Ohio State probably should be at 4. Now, that being said, the win this weekend by USC, to me, over a Utah team, which is the only team that beat them, would then jump them over Ohio State. And that would solve some of your problems. So I think they just, honestly, it's done out of convenience, because I think if you really think of it, I think you really could have gone Ohio State 4, USC 5, but then the convenience of it is why have to flip them after they win their championship, which would be easy to do, but they don't even have to worry about that.
Would the biggest thing would be, okay, USC winning the Pac-12 championship, okay, now we can slide them into 4, even with Ohio State that maybe could have been at 4. Would that have been like the way to go? Like if they were trying?
I think they could have easily done it. I think they just probably said, hey, why even cause the headache? Put USC at 4. If they win, they get to stay there. If everybody wins out, nothing changes. If one of those, if USC loses, it's easy. Ohio State's the team we're picking to replace them. And then I think TCU's a lock. Now would TCU go to 4 and Ohio State to 3 possibly? But I think TCU's a lock.
When we look at, this is where it gets interesting for me, 6 and 7, Alabama, Tennessee. I came in this and I thought, okay, even without Hendon Hooker, Tennessee still had the win over Alabama. They go on the road to LSU. They get beat by a South Carolina team who is now right there inside the top 20 in the college football playoff. And then you look at Alabama, a great team, have lost some very close games this year. What was, in your opinion, that argument of flipping? Because if a lot of people don't realize this, that 6 and 7 spot in the SEC is going to have a lot to do with, do you go to New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl, or do you potentially go to Miami and play the Orange Bowl? So there's more ramifications than just rankings.
There is a lot in it. And here is my deal is, if you would have said, hey, we went Alabama at 5 ahead of Ohio State, and we're thinking they lost 2 games, but both of them on the road on last place of the game. And we think, again, I'm trying to find the great wins in there. For Alabama, you know the losses. I'm trying to find the great wins. But if you had done that, you can see it. But I think if they're 6 and 7, ranked number 6 and ranked number 7, you put them and the Hendon Hooker argument to me, throw it out the window. Because, right, you're talking about where they are right now as a team. And what have you done to this point? And, hey, Tennessee's a better team. And now moving forward, they're not going to have Hendon Hooker. Well, if Alabama's in the playoff, is Bryce Young playing? Is Will Anderson playing? Let's take off. Okay, is C.J. Stroud playing? Okay, let's start knocking all these teams for all the opt-outs when you get to bowl game. Hey, we're going to take Hendon Hooker out, but there might be a whole bunch of guys not playing moving forward if they're not in the top 4. So let's remove those guys then before to do it. So I think you can make that argument. People say, oh, that's silly, but hey, that's a reality, and that happens in college football. And you also look at what the committee did. That's the one I don't get is Oregon State are ranked right next to each other. Oregon State head-to-head is ahead. Florida State, LSU are ranked right next to each other. Florida State head-to-head is ahead. The only one that is, and even you could sit there and they say, well, North Carolina State just beat North Carolina. They're not next to each other. They've separated them. North Carolina's 2 spots ahead. So when you look at the head-to-head battles right there, I have a hard time with Alabama being ahead of Tennessee because it kind of throws out that head-to-head victory. Now you could say the loss, well, hey, Alabama's losses were close and Tennessee's was a bad loss on the road against a top 25, both the losses right there are both teams are both the top 25 teams. Tennessee has the worst loss, but Tennessee has better wins. I mean, Tennessee beat Alabama and LSU. That's pretty impressive.
That's where it gets interesting to me because the committee keeps talking about we're not going to project. We're not going to project. We're not going to try to look ahead when we're doing these rankings. But you brought it up too. There are going to be a lot of players that do not participate in bowl games because they do not want to risk their future. Bryce Young is one of them. I'm not saying he's not going to play in whatever game that he's participating in, but he is taking a risk, just like these other players are. Yeah. So it's interesting to me how they don't look ahead, but actually do look ahead. And so it goes back and forth. And in your opinion, the last spot on this one, when you have a team like Tennessee and Alabama and they're 6 and 7, and you know how the Southeastern Conference works when it comes to placing teams in bowl games, usually it's the second best team in the conference goes to the sugar and whatnot. Is there that big of a difference between going to New Orleans or going to Miami, in your opinion?
I don't. You know what? The benefit is they both get rewarded, right? And listen, it's hard for me to say. I've coached in a lot of bowl games. Unfortunately, one I've never been to is the Sugar Bowl. I've been to a couple of Orange Bowls. I've been to, been to the Peach Bowl, been to the Cotton Bowl, been to Fiesta Bowls, but I've never been to a Sugar Bowl. And I will say though, the Orange Bowl is not a bad, like going down to South Beach for a week in between Christmas and New Year's. It could be a lot worse for you. So if that's the consolation prize, I guess it's not a bad one, but I think if you're a Tennessee fan, I think you want credit for, it's not just the bowl game. I think is they're going to be satisfied, and that's the ramification. But I think for their team and their fan base and everybody, they want kind of the reward of, hey, we beat this team head to head. Here we are sitting pretty equal across the board, and we won head to head. Why do we not get the nod to be one spot ahead?
Hey, Coach, what did you think about the Southeastern Conference this year? Just so many weird games, so many, we thought preseason, Coach, we thought Kentucky might be that team that might be fighting against Georgia late in November. Turns out it was actually Tennessee that was fighting Georgia in the East for a while. And in the West, it just, what a cluster. After LSU loses to Tennessee like they did, now all of a sudden they're playing in a title game. Your thoughts?
It's wide open. And the one thing I always believe this about the Southeastern Conference is when you talk about the top of the conference, you can go, hey, listen, the top of the Big Ten, the top of the Pac-12, the top of every conference is going to have the argument to say, hey, our best team's as good as any team in the SEC. And you know what? They're right. You know what? They are. Their top team's as good as any team in the SEC for the most part. Usually for the most part. But then when you start going, what about your second? What about your third? What about your fourth? What about your fifth? What about your sixth? And, when you look at it, when you go and you have to play in that league, and I think it really is defined, the best way is the last week's LSU Texas A&M game. Texas A&M, who everybody's written off, boy, all of the issues, all of the problems, with the exception of one thing. You show up there on a Saturday night, there's 95,000 people on their feet going crazy, and you look across the field, and there's a talented bunch of players that can beat you. And that, when you look at, and that's what separates the league, is the depth it has. When you go to NFL drafting, and usually the number one conference is the SEC East or West, and the number two conference is the SEC East or West, and then number three is like the Big Ten. It gets crazy that way. So the depth and the talent of the teams that are in the league and what it does to you, because it's not a single week. It was not, hey, LSU, the huge win over Alabama. Hey, we're going to make it. Then we got to go on the road and play Arkansas, who's a tough team. And they find a way to win that one. And then all of a sudden, I always say it's always the third week. It's never the first. It's never the second. It's when you have a huge game and then you find a way to win the next. And all of a sudden, you got to say, okay, we got to go show up. And you look at that schedule, and that third team is, and no matter who you are in this league, it's very rarely a team that hey, we can just roll the ball out and go win. Every year, there's Alabama through the years. They've been able to do that. Georgia right now, able to do that. Everybody else, no matter how good you are, that third game, you still have to be special.
And you make a really good point about it now, how crazy the conference has been, but how, you can't take anybody lightly, and especially with the way that we're headed towards in the future as well in Southeastern Conference when it comes to scheduling, expansion, it's only going to get tougher as we get in. Before I get into the transfer portal, I want to get your opinion on that. Just real quick on the upcoming weekend. Some interesting games, in my opinion. One that stands out is definitely going to be in Atlanta, just because of what happened this past weekend. How does a team like LSU respond going to Atlanta, knowing that their playoff chances were shot last weekend? So they're still going to play for an SEC championship, but you're not playing for a playoff spot. How do you get back into that mode?
Well, I think the first, you have a first-year coach and you have a younger football team a little bit, and so I think they learned their lesson. They're not calloused yet as a team and as a program with Brian Kelly in there. So I think they last week was the issue game, and they were they up for the game? Could they get it going? Could they handle that environment? Could they, some of the the talent that Texas A&M has. All of a sudden this week, it'll be a different mindset. And I think, it kind of that wake up happened on the plane ride home Saturday night. It's not like, hey, we'll put this one to bed and get to work tomorrow. I'm sure Brian Kelly got on on the intercom on the plane, and said, hey, everybody, put your tray table away, buckle your seatbelt, seat up high. And we're playing a championship football game this weekend. So right now, the restart starts right now. And I'm sure that they will be a little different team this week than we saw last week. Now, the issue they're going to deal with is they're playing a Georgia team that I think is callous. They have a quarterback that's older than half the starters, I think, in the NFL.
Yep.
They have a very mature team. They've been there before, and they're somewhat of a complete team. And so I think in that game, I think Georgia wins. I think they pull away late. I don't know that they cover. I saw the spread is like this huge spread. I see Georgia
17 to 19 points, Coach.
I see Georgia winning by 2 scores. Maybe late would be my game. I see them winning by 10 or 14. And now could they cover if they break a run with 2 minutes left or a pick six with 2 minutes left? I think that's where they might come. But I think it'll be closer for a while. I think Georgia will be in control most of the night. But LSU will be right there with them, and then Georgia pulls away late.
Okay. The other one that stands out to me is the Pac-12 championship, because TCU, Kansas State will hit on that in just a second. But that game to me, Cameron Rising, Caleb Williams, quarterback duel, something that I'm looking forward to just sitting down and actually just watching. Your opinion on that game, in what Utah, they've already beat them by 1 point this season. Do you have that same game plan where you just let Cameron Rising just get loose, or how do you control USC?
I think the issue comes with this. I think the USC lost on a 2-point conversion.
Yep.
On an emotional night at Utah, and I know in the Pac-12 it's not SEC environments, but Utah, you playing at an altitude, the Moss. I know I think it's only 60,000 people, but I coached out there.
Right.
But how the stadium's set up and how everything. I mean, it is loud, and it's a tough environment. They played this on the emotional night when they were honoring their fallen teammates.
Yep.
that had died in the past year. So when you put all that together, there's this huge emotional win for Utah. Now, Utah can carry, hey, we've beaten them. We know how to beat this team. We have a good recipe, which is we're physical at the line of scrimmage. They have an excellent, when you look at what Morgan Scalley and Kyle Whittingham put together on the defensive side of the ball, we're going to be able to get after you defensively, and we can kind of run the ball with a tough winning quarterback.
Yeah.
On the flip side, you have now USC that said, hey, you got us once. We're playing at a much higher level right now. We're starting to fire on all cylinders. Our quarterback knows the offense, but everybody else is picking it up. We have all of these playmakers, and we're at a neutral site. So I think I'm a big Utah fan. I got my Utah helmet up here.
I see it. Yep.
And so I love the Utes, but hey, they don't build those buildings out in Las Vegas by not being really smart, and they have it like a 3-point game. I think it's going to come down to the wire. I think USC is going to win and kind of pull away with that one.
I tend to agree with you on that one. And then the other one, Big 12 championship game, coach, TCU going to play Kansas State, which to me has been an interesting team to watch this year. They're blowing out some opponents. They're going down the wire the other. Got a quarterback that can scramble. Then you look at TCU with Max Duggan, Kendry Miller, what they've been able to do. Does it set up for TCU just to run the table here and finish this thing off on Saturday?
Ooh, it's a tough one because I think Kansas State can play defense.
Right.
They're balanced offense. They can throw it. They can run it. They got playmakers. And it's always hard to beat a team twice. And to me, it's hard to go against TCU. This is the one game that I see. Well, if Kansas State won, it would not shock me in the least, because at some point you're thinking the magic has to run out. Right. At some point, but TCU, it's all of a sudden, there's no way they're winning this. Oh, they returned a kick. They can't play defense. Boy, they completely shut this team down in the second half. Okay, hey, boy, it's out of grasp. And Max Duggan, some miracle score to go win the game. It is, they're almost like a team of destiny when you see, so when you see how they've won all year, I certainly would never want to bet against them. However, I see if there is an upset this weekend, I see it being in that game. I really do. I think that's the best chance of an upset in that game. But I do think also, though, like I said, if TCU still, unless it's a blowout and they just look awful for some reason,
yeah,
I think they're still in, because Ohio State got blown out last week at home.
But do you think they're kind of waiting on TCU to lose something like this? If they get beat by, let's just say, Coach, they get beat by 10 to 14 points. Is that going to drop them out of the four?
So you're saying, hey, they lost by 10 points in a extra bonus championship game to a team they've already beat.
Right.
Where Ohio State got doubled down at home.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what the argument is. Oh, I agree.
Alabama almost has a better argument to me. You know, I mean, we went on the road and lost on a miracle field goal and a 2-point conversion.
Then Alabama's best win is maybe over Texas or Mississippi State.
The problem is they don't have the wins to back it up, and and so that's what's so intriguing. But I could see that's, to me, the team that's the favorite in a game that's on the most upset alert. And you know what? I mean, I think that's the closest spread. And like you said, the people and the people in Vegas know. And the people in Vegas probably are scratching their heads saying, I don't know, but I'm betting it's going to come down to about the last play of the game for TCU, and something's going to happen.
And then, Michigan just going to take care of Purdue this weekend. Everything you hate to hear what's going on with Aiden O'Connell and his family. And it just, this game feels lopsided.
Yeah, but you know what? And you watch Michigan throughout the year, and I think what's going to get everybody freaked out early is it's going to be close early. Yeah. I think Purdue's going to have a great plan. They're going to make plays. Aiden O'Connell, I know with everything going on, but he's going to play in the game. He plays in the game, and he's a veteran guy. And so I think it's going to be that deal that all of a sudden in the middle of the third quarter, it's going to be a close game, and everyone's going to be kind of like, oh, what's going on? And then Michigan's going to pull away late. Again, I don't know that they cover. I think they do maybe late cover, kind of one of the, like a little backdoor cover at the end of the game, maybe.
Yeah.
But I think they win, and I think it'll end up being a little closer than everybody thinks.
Okay, so we're getting past championship Saturday, and I agree with you on hitting the spots are at. But there's something coming up that I wanted to get your opinion on, and this is the transfer portal starting December 5th, Coach. I'm talking with people at different schools and different coaches and assistant coaches, and this thing it sounds like it's going to be the wild, wild west starting Monday, technically Sunday, if we're really getting into it. But the way that this thing is set up, where you have a 45-day window and players leaving, let's be honest, players leveraging to stay at certain schools, I would love your opinion on what you think, how this is going to play out, and what this will look like for a regular college football fan that maybe hasn't seen something like this before.
Well, I think there's crazy with it. Now, I think part of it is there's the different scenarios. And I think the issue comes for a lot of the guys, right? You look at the reason for the transfer portal, right? Which is, hey, I have an issue. This is not a great fit for me here. I want to go somewhere else. Hey, I'm a senior and I'm going to be a backup. I'd love to go have the opportunity to go play somewhere else. I have an issue back home. I want to go home. You can make the argument, hey, my coach left and I came to play for this coach. The new coach come in, it doesn't fit who I am. All right. Now, I think there's a lot more to it, which is, is it going to go crazy beyond that? Now, I think at the schools, and you look at what happened this year with USC as the prime example, right?
Yep.
They go hire Lincoln Riley, and I know these schools are paying big money, but now does that set a precedent now where you're looking and saying, okay, I want to go, you have a school, right? And I'm going to call, I have a job open. Mac Brown, I will pay you an unlimited amount of money if you bring Drake May with you. And can he bring a couple players with him? And that's what USC did, right? Lincoln Riley went in and he said, hey, I'm going to take my couple of my best players and we're going to SC, and on the trip out there, you guys call other guys and get them to come with you.
Exactly.
And we're going to put together kind of an all-star team. And, but I don't know that it works that way for everyone, And so I think most coaches have the view of the transfer portal of, hey, I'd like to keep my guys. I always have. If I can understand with guys, if your role is not going to be where you want it to be and you want to look around, I understand that. But also I'm looking into the portal to fill some gaps, not to create the all-star team that USC was able to do this year, maybe. And I think that is what goes on. Now, the issue comes is a lot of these kids now are saying, hey, all right, I'm going to go look around in the transfer portal. It doesn't play out the way they think. Right. And now they're like, I'd like to stay. Well, they've already been replaced. The second you're in, as a coach, for the most part, you're looking and saying, hey, are you out the door? Yes. Okay. Well, I got to go get somebody new. Then a month later, you're calling saying, hey, you know what? Maybe my best option is to stay. And as a coach, you might say, hey, that's, I wish you could stay, but that spot's long gone. I had to fill it. We had to
You'd
get
be a walk on.
So I think there's a lot of craziness with it. And I think there'll continue to be some craziness with it. Over the next couple of years. And I think then it'll start to settle down. Will there not be craziness? There'll always be craziness. I think over the next couple of years, everyone will they'll get into the rhythm of this is kind of how the best way it's going to work. Everyone understands it, from the players, the coaches, everybody. And I think that will sort a little bit.
But do you think it, but and here's how I'll counter that by saying, not really counter, but the NIL that is out there. This is almost like the first go around. Like, I think spring was kind of like a test run with it, a little bit with NIL factoring into these players transferring and putting their name into the portal, because two things are happening. They're dipping their toes into the water to see if the current school, okay, do you want to stay? What do we have to do to keep you? But then you got other schools that might be presenting these collectives, let's just be honest, presenting offers to other players as well. How do you think that plays into all of this?
Well, I think a lot of the guys, I'm guessing, right, in some of this, because I think it's this point now where guys coming in and saying, hey, coach, what's my offer to stay? Let's call it, I need my NIL deal.
Yep.
And hey, I had a great year. For you as a school, I had a great year. I did a lot for us. Let's up the ante for me. Or I need to go test the free agent market right now. So I'm sure there's a lot of coaches this week that are negotiating deals. They're working there and they're on their collective or however they're making it work. And there's a lot of boosters writing checks this week to keep guys on the roster. And saying,
does that blow your mind? Does it, like, the fact that we're having that conversation right now, we're talking about this, and it is legal, Coach? Like, do you sit back and you're
probably upsetting? It's upsetting for the people that were doing it when it was illegal, right?
There you go. Exactly.
But you see, the people that complained the most about it are probably the ones that were cheating the most, right?
Great point.
Because they're like, oh, now it's all equal. Now everybody's fair. You know what? I put it this way. I'm all for the players getting money. I'm all for the concept of NIL. I'm right. The concept of it makes perfect sense. Should the players get more? Absolutely. How the system's set up, I think I don't know if there's a better way to do it. Someone needs to come up with it fast. And the issue is, having sat in a lot of committees, and I think it's all great for the players, and I'm all for it. I wish there was a little better structure around some of it all. But that's hard to do because, everything, and you sit there, and I would say for us, just talking, or, right, guys talking and football fans talking. I'm talking about going to a Senate hearing and getting a senator on the phone, getting a lawmaker on the phone, getting an attorney general on the phone, and say, let's get our, what law can govern to make a sensible rule? And they're going to say there isn't. Hey, it's a free market. You're not a collective bargain union. Okay. So everyone's out on the free market, and anything against that is against the law. So, right. So it's an interesting deal, it's a crazy deal.
It is. And you got collectives that are now involved in this. You've got boosters that, for being honest with each other, were in the bushes. Now they don't have to stick in the bushes anymore.
It's easier for them. It's just like, hey, I'll just write the check.
Right. You need me to wire something? Okay. Wire it over, write the check, do whatever you need. But it's interesting to see how the game has changed in the last few years, Coach, and where we're going in the future.
Well, it'll be interesting because I think it's starting now, right? It'll be interesting to see in a couple of years, as guys right. are sitting there and saying, hey, you have guys that have never played a college football game making $1 million. They've never played a college game. So what, do they have drive still? Do they have motivation? You look at it and you see it in the NFL, and you're looking at 25, 26-year-old professionals that get the big deal, and then they really kind of fall off a little bit.
Good point. Yep.
And not all, you know, I mean, and you know, I mean, you can make arguments that, well, all the different reasons, but that happens. Well, now it's starting to happen to high school kids, you know, and so I mean, how you got to it's I think it'll affect the game in the long term over years to come. Did the kids deserve a lot? Did the kids deserve stuff? Yes. Should they be able to profit from their name, image, and likeness? Yes. But when you have a hard time telling me that a high school kid has a market value way above most NFL players, I have a hard time with that.
Or a hard time saying a high school kid has more of a market value than a current player that's been on the roster that's already a star in itself.
It's interesting. So we'll see how it all. We'll see what it does in a couple of years and how it all sorts out for everybody.
Coach, last question, and I really appreciate you joining, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you this question. Your thoughts on getting back into the game in some form or fashion. Watching you and seeing what you're doing on the network, and it seems like you're having a darn good time doing it. Interested in your thoughts on what Coach Mullen's career might look like in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll never say never, and don't know about the long term. I'm really enjoying the TV side of things. So it's you get to see the game in a very different light. I'm getting to enjoy. I'm enjoying the TV side of things a lot. I'm enjoying family time. I barely missed any of my son's games. Get to, you know, and I was laughing. I think so far this year, I've between football and basketball, I've missed 2 games. And when you're coaching, it's a blessing if you can get to 2 games. You know, but I don't know in the long term what it'll be. But right now, I'm really enjoying the TV life. You know, and you know, and people have reached out. You know, I've had several different, you know, different people reach out, and you know, and right up front, I told them, I say, hey, you know, I'm not there yet. I don't know that I won't get back into coaching. But right now I'm kind of really enjoying where I'm at in life. And, but you know, coaches are competitive, so you never say never, you know, I mean, you're going to get hit and you're going to say, this situation has my name written all over it. I'm ready to go.
That sounds like something that maybe you have your eye on in the next couple of years. At least you're getting some basketball games in with the family and having a good time. That's all that matters to begin with, right?
Oh yeah.
That's what it's about.
That's what it's about.
Coach, listen, I truly appreciate you joining us. I hope you have a great weekend covering football. I know you're going to be at some games in the future over the next month and traveling around. And are you going anywhere this weekend? Or are you going to be?
I'll be on ABC. I'll be in doing all the you know, the half times and pre-games and all around the games for all the ABC championship games this weekend. I'll be up in Bristol, Connecticut at the worldwide headquarters up there, and covering all the half times of all the games.
That's Coach Dan Mullen, former Florida Gators coach, current ESPN college football analyst. I'm Trey Wallace. This has been the Trey Wallace Podcast on the Outkick Network. Coach, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Enjoy bowl season.
Thanks. You too. Have a great holiday.
I appreciate you. That was former head coach of the Florida Gators, current ESPN analyst, broadcast host, Coach Dan Mullen. Coming up next, we have got South Carolina head football coach Shane Beamer joining the Trey Wallace Podcast. Again, all of this presented by Outkick.com. Stay tuned. Shane Beamer coming up next. All right, second half of the Trey Wallace Podcast today. Happy to be joined by, we were first joined by Coach Dan Mullen. Now we're joined by Coach Shane Beamer of the South Carolina Gamecocks. Shane, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you coming on and coming off the way that the regular season ended for you guys. That's where I want to start first. How do you explain, or what was it like after the Florida loss, and then you come back, you get back to Columbia, crazy crowd, you beat up on Tennessee in the way that you did on offense, and then you turn around and you go to Clemson. You know, for you guys to do that on offense and what you've done, and also special teams, which I think won the Clemson game, in my opinion, how do you put that all, wrap that up in your head?
College football, man. It's every Saturday is different, and it's every week is a season. And for us specifically, it just goes back to the people in this program. We got a bunch of fighters and it's a resilient group of guys that we did not perform well down at Florida, to say the least, and give Florida a lot of credit for that too. They played really well that night. But, I knew coming out of Gainesville, we weren't as bad as we looked, and that we had a good football team. And it was really just, learn from the Florida game. Here's the mistakes we made. Here's what we got to do better going forward. And we got a great opportunity in front of us with Tennessee coming to town, and then Clemson after that. And it goes back to the leadership we have in this program, and it showed the last 2 weeks.
How special was that after the game at Clemson, having that moment with your family? I saw, and I think it was, you were on the field. First off, South Carolina fans stormed the field, which was all really cool to see. I haven't seen that before in a away game. And then I think it was your daughter that came up behind you during the ESPN post game. What was that like? I know it's hard to put it in words, but you got family there, your dad there, everyone celebrating that win. What did that mean to you personally?
Really special. I mean, it was already special because, how important this game is to all Carolina fans worldwide, and how happy they were to win it. So you felt that emotion. You're happy for the players on the team. You're happy for the seniors that came back and get to go out with this win against their in-state rival. But certainly to be on the opponent's field, your own fans have stormed the field, and they're surrounding you while you do an interview with Molly McGrath from ABC. And then, my children are right there with me. My wife is to the side. I can see my, mom and dad and sister and brother-in-law and their children in the stands. We had some close friends from Oklahoma, the Hibble family, who's the head golf coach, Ryan Hibble at Oklahoma. They were in town and at the game. So it was just a lot of special people there with me, and certainly really happy for the family because, as they make a lot of sacrifices to allow me to do what I love to do, and for them to be able to share in that moment with me, and all the great moments this year was really special.
How interesting was it, in your opinion, that you guys, and I said this to start the interview, the way that you guys won on special teams, putting Clemson down inside the 5-yard line numerous times on punts, and then the way that you guys are able to play on defense, wrapping that all up into a season, and then having that play out the way that you did, which y'all played well on special teams, but it's that Beamer ball mentality. And for it to play out, that's what stood out to me the most out of that game is you guys putting them in horrible field position.
Yeah, there's no question. It was huge. They started 3 drives inside their own 5-yard line, which is tough to overcome. So Kai Kroger, our punter, is fantastic. Mitch Jeter, our place kicker, he hasn't missed a field goal all year. Now, he doesn't have a ton of attempts, but he's 10 for 10. Hasn't missed one all year. And Saturday, he was huge. He made the game-winning field goal. Shipley, for them, their running back, is also their kickoff returner. So we were very concerned about him. And we kicked touchbacks the whole game for the most part. And then Mitch, our place kicker, he's the one that caused the fumble on the kickoff return when he went down there and made the tackle. So he was fantastic, and just controlling field position, but then also causing 2 turnovers. It was huge. And you see those guys, but it's everybody on the team that contributes to special teams. Nate Atkins, our tight end, caught a huge pass in the game, but then he's also the one that caused the fumble on the punt return. So we've been really good on special teams all year. Credit goes to special teams coordinator Pete Limbo and Stanton Weber, our special teams analyst, but then these players too for their effort and the way that they've bought into it also.
Shane, wrapping up the last 2 seasons, and I know you guys have got a good bowl game coming up. What does that do for the future of the South Carolina football program, especially the way that you guys are able to finish this year? And it's kind of eerily similar to the way you guys finished last season as well at home, with some wins over Auburn, Florida, but just doing it 2 years in a row, it's kind of setting up for the future for Gamecock football.
Yeah, it's been huge. I was laughing with somebody yesterday after last season going into 2022. I made the comment that people tell me there's never been more excitement about South Carolina football than what there is now. And I believe that. We were coming off a 6-win regular season, a win over North Carolina in the bowl game, and a lot of excitement going into 2022. and rightfully so. I believe that, but now I could say that again, and it would be true with what, last year was great. Came in, we were a 2-win team in 2020, and then went from 2 wins to 7 wins with wins over Florida, Auburn, and North Carolina in our last 5 games. And then I think a lot of the narrative going into this year was, well, a lot of the SEC is going to be better. There's new coaches in the East. The schedule they play, they may be better, but it's going to be hard to maybe even get bowl eligible. And not only did we get bowl eligible, we got 8 wins. And we're sitting here nationally ranked right now. So the momentum that we have right now as a program, getting ready to go on the road recruiting here at the end of the week, it is sky high. And the last 2 wins certainly opened up. There were already a lot of eyes opened in the recruiting world and across the country, but I think it opened up a lot more eyes as well. And we have a lot of work to do. I mean, a lot of work, but we're certainly on the right track and got some great people in this program, and we're trying to continue to just get better each and every day.
Coach, when you look around the Southeastern Conference and you look at the new coaches that come in, coaches that are still here, some teams are ranked in the top 10 or top 25, and maybe looked a little different than preseason expectations might have looked at. When you look at the SEC as a whole and you look at the changes that have happened, is there something that stands out to you more than anything else, or is it just the schools are getting better? It's about to expand here very soon. How do you put your finger on what the conference looks like? And there has been a little bit of discrepancy when it comes to teams this year.
Yeah, I think one, it's a absolute grind, in this league. I mean, just week in, week out. And no disrespect to other conferences, but I do believe maybe in other conferences that there's weeks that your better teams can just kind of say, all right, this one, I don't want to say is a breather, but you can't do that in this league.
Right.
I mean, no matter who you're playing. I mean, you play Texas A&M on a Saturday night, and you got to turn right back around and play another good team the next week, or you beat Tennessee on a Saturday night, and for us, you got to turn around and play Clemson. But one, it's a grind. 2, I'm constantly reminded just how blessed I am to be in this conference and to be able to coach in the venues that I get to coach in and coach and compete against the players and coaches in this league. I mean, it's unbelievable. But I also, it's a great reminder of what a thin line it is, to answer your question, between winning and losing. And, a lot of these teams that maybe didn't have the season they wanted are about a play or 2 away from having the season they wanted. And teams that are, right up there at the top are a play or 2 away from not being where they want to be. You could say that about us last year. I mean, we went 6-6 in the regular season, and we were about 2 plays away from being 8-4, but we were also about 2 plays away from being 4-8 last year as well. So it's just it's a grind every week in this league. It's a grind in college football. This is the most competitive conference in America. This is the toughest conference in America, and it's not getting any easier. But as a competitor, you embrace that.
When you look at the next, and I don't think it started, 45 days, December 5th. So we'll get into this, the transfer portal, everything that's going to go down, and talking with other coaches in the industry about it, they look at it as, okay, this is probably going to be a little bit like the Wild Wild West for a little bit. And it's like coaches have had the spring to kind of, okay, this is what it might look like when it comes to NIL, when it comes to recruiting. How do you look at the transfer portal window? How does your coaching staff look at it, starting Monday, of trying to navigate between players that are wanting to find the correct spot to play at and playing time, but also maybe players using NIL to their advantage at times?
Yeah, it's a lot. There's no question about it. There's a lot that you can't control. So to me, it's worry about what you can control. And in regards to our current roster, it's not like we all of a sudden just started doing that this week, Trey. I mean, you better be doing it 365 days a year where your players know what you're about, that you're real. and that this is a program that they understand what this program is about and what's expected in this program. And you hope it's a program that they want to be a part of. And then certainly we're going to have guys on our roster currently that feel like there's better opportunities for them out there, maybe from a playing time standpoint. And we've had a lot of meetings this week. I mean, I've met with probably 25 players just about, decisions they make, maybe just being honest with them that, look, here's kind of where I see your role going forward. And I want you here, but if you want to play more than you are, I just want to let you know kind of here's where we are at this point. And, other conversations, just making sure guys are good and happy and want to be here. And all the conversations I've had with guys this week have been productive for sure. But you also realize that it's a long time until that portal window closes. And then, it's opening again in April for a couple of weeks. So to me, it's my communication with the players and then my coaching staff is just making sure that we keep this communication open, because our guys are getting ready to start exams next week, and then they're going to have some time where they can go home for a little bit before they come back and we start bowl practices. So things may be good today, but I'm not naive. I also know people are in players' ears and things like that also, and you just want to constantly just keep that line of communication open with your current roster, while at the same time you're evaluating the portal for guys that could potentially help your program also. But then you're also trying to balance that with what is your roster going to look like, because you've got guys on your team that have decisions to make about the NFL that honestly are undecided. So there's just there's a lot also while you're trying to recruit and trying to get ready for a bowl game. So it's you worry about each day and go back to just what I said about just trying to make your program better each and every day, and that's what we're doing now.
Hey, I brought this up with another coach in the conference. How do you navigate around a player that enters the transfer portal, but maybe the pasture is not greener on the other side, and potentially wanting to return? And this coach told me it's like, it's tough because if somebody enters the portal, we're trying to figure out how to fill that spot going forward, or we're trying to, okay, this is what our roster is going to look like. You've been involved in it for the last few years per se. How do you handle that type of situation?
I'll be honest with you, and I'm probably coming up, I actually haven't had to deal with that specific situation yet where someone entered and wanted to come back. I'll be honest with you. I mean, the guys that have entered the portal that from our standpoint, since I've been here, are guys that I've had communication with and understood why they were leaving. And a lot of it was just because of our honesty towards them. That I know we had some guys enter the portal after spring practice, guys that were great young men that I didn't want to necessarily lose, but I also wanted to be honest with them and tell them, here's your role coming out of spring practice. And it's probably not what you want it to be. And I want you here, but if you want to look elsewhere, I'll help you. And those guys are all guys that found other homes, and one's playing at Georgia Tech, one's playing at Virginia. There's situations, there's things like that. But as far as guys that have gone in, wanted to come back, haven't really dealt with it yet. I'm not trying to dodge the question, but it is tricky because that coach that you spoke with is right. I mean, you think you're losing a roster spot, you're immediately going to try and replace it with someone, just because you've also got to do what's best for your program.
Last two questions. Let's have a little fun. It's Christmas time. I know there's not a lot of breaks for Shane Beamer and the coaching staff or whatnot, but I do know that you, family-oriented guy, want your coaches to have, that downtime as well. How do you handle the month of December with the coaching staff, and what are some things that you like to do, as a coach, to get away and spend time with the family in the holidays?
Yeah, no question. You want to have that balance without a doubt. And we do, we're in the office this week and we're getting ready to go recruiting here at the end of the week. So I want our guys to be able to, catch their breath a little bit here before they hit the road recruiting on Friday. And then like most college teams, we'll have a little bit of a break before Christmas and right after Christmas as we finish bowl practice and then get ready to go to the bowl site, wherever that is. We'll have a break around Christmas as well. So, we work really, really hard, but, I want our coaches to be dads, and I want our staff members to be dads, moms, whatever it may be, also. So that's critical. And then, for me, you're right. It feels like when you're off, you're never really off. But, typically before Christmas, it's probably scrambling to get Christmas shopping done for everyone involved. And thank God I've got an amazing wife that does a lot, for that as well, and got a great family. So we live in a great community. So for us, it's being involved in the community, but just being able to just spend time together as a family while my kids still want to hang out with me.
That's a good point. Shane, favorite Christmas movie?
Good question. There's a lot of them. I mean, Elf was on the other night. I sat down with my kids and watched Elf. That's one of it's on I'm always going to watch. Christmas Story is going to be on TBS nonstop around Christmas time as well. My mom's a sucker for It's a Wonderful Life. She loves that one. So anytime that one comes on, I think of her. So there's a lot of them, but definitely Elf is one my kids love to watch. And anytime it's on, they want me to watch it with them.
And maybe Christmas Vacation thrown in there for the adults.
Forgot about that one. That's always a classic as well. That may be more whenever I'm alone watching that one as well.
That's good stuff. I know you got a busy weekend ahead of you. You're going to, if I'm not mistaken, you're going to be in Atlanta.
I am. I'm looking forward to going over there. SEC Network asked me to be a part of some of the stuff they're doing before the game, which I'm honored to be a part of. And I'm a college football coach, but I'm a college football fan. So excited to be over there, just kind of be a part of the atmosphere in Atlanta this weekend. I know it'll be special.
Hey, real quick, how does a team like that, last question going out, how does a team like LSU bounce back after losing a game and then getting back up for an SEC championship? You've had to kind of experience that, losing to Florida, get back up for a big game. What do you see how that plays out?
Yeah, I just think you gotta, you learn from the last loss they had, but you realize what's in front of you. And I'm sure when they went into the season, that if somebody said, hey, you got an opportunity, you're going to be playing in Atlanta for a chance to win an SEC championship, every single one of those players would have taken it. And regardless of what happened last week, what an opportunity in front of them. And they're also going into a situation where I'm guessing nobody's probably picking them to win the game either. So it's I'm sure, Coach Kelly is a competitor and the players on his team, and they're looking forward to the opportunity to go play in that venue, in that atmosphere. And to me, it's easy to get back and get yourself going after a tough loss when you have an opportunity like that in front of you.
That's South Carolina head coach Shane Beamer. They're going to be playing in a nice bowl game. I would think somewhere in the state of Florida. We'll find out what that looks like in the next couple of days. Coach, thanks so much for joining. Good luck the rest of the season, recruiting and whatnot, and I appreciate you.
You bet. Thanks for having me on. Keep up the great work.
Absolutely. That's Coach Shane Beamer. I'm Trey Wallace. This was presented by Outkick.com. Check out the latest podcast coming out very soon.